It's time to preview Week 10 up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Friday, May 24th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White, and let's start with two start pitchers. Should we start these names? Beginning with Justiin Steele, who has struggled recently. He is at the Brewers and home against the Reds.
He has struggled recently, but I think a lot of it is rust. And I know in his most recent start against the Braves, he was rolling till he had an inning where things kind of just unraveled on him. I think he's trending the right direction. These matchups aren't bad. 2 starts. Got to roll Justiin Steele out there.
Michael King has been inconsistent. He is facing the Marlins and at the Royals.
Yeah, he has been inconsistent. And those matchups, one great one there against the Marlins. Royals, it's been a tough lineup so far. I still have my doubts about it long term, but there's no denying they've been putting up some runs. So I understand the hesitation with Michael King, but I think since one of the matchups is really favorable, I think it's worth starting with 2 starts.
Brian Bayo, the walks are piling up recently. He is at the Orioles and home against the Tigers.
So again, one bad matchup, one good one. Been kind of shaky recently, but if you're keeping Bayo around, it's for the 2-start week. So go ahead and plug him in.
Gavin Stone at the Mets, and he gets the Rockies on the road in Dodger Stadium.
So pretty good matchups there, but I just don't think there's a lot of upside with Gavin Stone. I would treat him as more of a points league play.
Christian Javier is at the Mariners and home against the Twins.
And again, not bad matchups here. I don't have a lot of confidence in Christian Javier at this point, but in points leagues, if I still had him on my roster, I'd probably find a way to get him in my lineup.
Blake Snell currently has an ERA over 11, and he is home for 2 against the Phillies and the Yankees.
Yeah, so obviously you won't do it in a categories league, just too much risk to your ERA and whip. In a points league, could you start Blake Snell? What you're basically doing there is hoping that one of these 2 starts is when it clicks for him and he takes off and you have him in your lineup when that happens. And it might be worth that roll of the dice, given that in points leagues, you don't have to worry about protecting ERA and whip. You just don't want a big negative point total. And there is some risk of that, but I could see starting Blake Snell in a points league. I could see doing it. It's not a must, though.
All right, who are some 2-star pitchers that could be out there on the waiver wire for Week 10?
It's not a great selection. There's only one I really like, and that's Zach Littell, who's available in about 30% of CBS leagues. He's got the one good matchup, one bad matchup thing, Oakland to Baltimore. But he's just been solid all year long. Littell has better strikeout pitcher than I gave him credit for coming into the year. It seems like the Rays have done a lot to improve his stock, and I think he's good enough that with 2 starts, you pretty much start Zach Littell everywhere. Alec Marsh is more available, and he's been effective this year. His matchups are not that great, Twins and Padres. So I'd probably leave him for points leagues. I don't have a lot of confidence in the profile to begin with for as well as he's pitched so far. That's Alec Marsh. Cooper Criswell, kind of the same thing. Don't see a lot of strengths there, but he's pitched well, and he has 2 starts this week, the Orioles and the Tigers. Colt Irvin with 2 home starts. I think he's startable. He's facing the Red Sox and Rays. And I got Jake Irvin here to round out my 10 sleeper pitchers, but it's really just I couldn't find a 10th name, and at least he's making 2 starts and has pitched decently. The matchups aren't great, Braves and Guardians.
All right, well, who are these single start streamers that I think this list is a little bit better.
A little bit better, especially at the top, Alek Manoah at the White Sox. I think that's a great play. But after that, Reese Olson at Boston, that's really just a matter of Reese Olson being undervalued, I think. It's not like the matchup is particularly special. And he left his last start with an injury, so that brings some trepidation as well. But that's where we are with sleeper pitchers this week. Reese Olson's high on the list. Christian Scott, actually a tough matchup against the Diamondbacks, but I think he's good and undervalued, so I'm going to put him on here. Jose Soriano gets the Mariners, who have been far and away the most strikeout-prone team against righties. And then Matt Waldron, 3 consecutive good starts. Difficult to trust a knuckleballer, but he's facing the Marlins.
And let's slide over to the hitters, the best matchups for next week. The Guardians, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Braves, and Rays. The worst hitter matchups, Pirates, Angels, Tigers, Astros, and A's. Scott, how fast can you read us your sleeper hitters for next week?
Pretty fast, I think. So you mentioned the Blue Jays have the best hitter matchups, and I got 3 Blue Jays for you right here. Dalton Varsho, kind of surprising. He's available enough to put here, but a must this week. Davis Schneider, who's become a regular part of their lineup, like the plate discipline, like the power. Going with Davis Schneider. Danny Jansen, if you need a catcher. He's coming on strong lately, and you might just stick with him if you pick him up this week. Andy Pages, his production's been down lately, but the Dodgers matchups are really good. 3rd best, as you pointed out. The toughest pitcher on the schedule for them is like Tyler McGill, Austin Gomber. I'm hoping Pages bounces back with those matchups. Lars Nootbaar, decent matchups for the Cardinals, only one lefty. He's been hitting well of late, and I think has a lot of upside. JD Martinez, same thing. The Nationals are one of the teams playing 7 games and only 1 left-hander on the schedule. So I like Jesse Winker. I like Luis Garcia. The Rays, you mentioned they have the 5th best matchup, only 1 left-hander. So I'm hoping this is the week Brandon Lau gets on track. And finally, Josh Bell. It's been hot lately if you need a first baseman.
All right, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.